Hello, everyone. All of those who may be coming and join us through the channels of our YouTube, Facebook, and also Web Rádio Fraternidade. Welcome, everyone, for today's study in Spiritism Inspiring Lives. And today we have the pleasure to have with us Dr. Daniel Assisi, who will be presenting the theme, The Spirit's Journey. But before we hand it over and I present Daniel Assisi, I would kindly invite everyone for our initial moments of harmonizing ourselves. Those who would like to close your eyes, please feel free to do so. So we start calming our minds, our hearts, for this unique and special moment in our existences, as immortal beings as we all are, children of God, beings in evolution, learning day by day about ourselves, about the natural laws in the universe, about our evolution. All of us who are present here, those in the flesh and those in the spirit, may we start this moment expressing our gratitude for our Creator, God, with His infinite love towards every and each one of us. Our gratitude for Jesus, our Master and Guide, the friend of every one of us, for giving us the opportunity once more to be learning in the school earth. Our gratitude for the enlightened beings who are always with us, inspiring us, fortifying us, and helping us. Our gratitude for this moment of reflections that is favored to us. Our gratitude for the spiritual benefactors who always anticipate us and are here preparing this ambient for all of us in this loving, fraternal environment. And within those feelings of unity through our hearts, through solidarity, through our inner loving beings, inner loving aspects that we connect through our thoughts and feelings, we start this meeting today. And once more, I welcome everyone. And firstly, we would like to welcome Daniel Assisi. Thank you for your time to be with us once more. It's always a great pleasure to learn with you. And we are grateful for your time that you allocate in being here with us. For those who don't know Daniel Assisi, which is very hardly, but in case there is someone, we briefly give a presentation. Daniel Assisi has spoken on spirituality and spiritism throughout the United States and abroad. A founding member of the Spiritist Institute, Daniel has also been an active participant in the Spiritist movement in California for over 15 years. Passionate about education, Dr. Assisi works with public schools and education reform in California and holds a doctorate degree in education and master's in public administration with a graduate certificate in public policy from the University of Southern California. Daniel lives in San Diego, California. Welcome, Daniel, and in that way, we hand it over to you.
Thank you so much. I am so glad to be here, so thankful to have a chance to speak with you today about such an interesting topic. I love these study sessions because they allow us the opportunity to think out loud about important topics that may be of particular interest to us. And they also allow us to have this wonderful interaction where we get to ask questions not only of ourselves, but of each other, and really get to learn more about who we are and what is it that we want for ourselves. And today, I am very excited about the possibility because our topic, the journey of the spirit, is something that is very pertinent to everything that we are talking about. This journey of the spirit is something that all of us begin to contemplate when we begin to really come to terms with our spiritual nature. And I think that, as Vanessa was telling us right before in her meditation and her prayer, this understanding of immortality changes our perspectives in many different ways. And so today, if you have the patience, I would love to share with you some thoughts about how I see the journey of the spirit and why that matters, and what is it that we can do as a next step, if you will, for all of these things. So I hope that you would not be shy if you're listening and if you're with us. Pop your questions in there and introduce yourself. I do love our learning community and the ability that we have to interact with each other. So that's always very welcome for me in general. But I think that the great place to start is really to talk about our journey as spirits. And as I was briefly mentioning, I think this is a beautiful and complex topic. It's really about a journey of awareness. Obviously, to think of ourselves as spirits requires a significant shift from our day to day lives. So, most of the time, we go through our day thinking ourselves as human beings, which we are. But we are often pressed by the needs of the physical world and wake up in the morning thinking about the work that we need to do, perhaps the bills that we need to pay, the commitments we have made, and the things that we need to do to sustain our lives in this world that we live in. And all of those things are very important, and we should definitely pay attention to them. But as we begin to understand and study Spiritism and begin to contemplate our immortal nature and dabble with the idea of reincarnation as a fundamental piece to divine justice and our own moral evolution, it is only normal that we begin to ask questions about what is the journey of the spirit? Where do we come from? How do we get here? And what happens next to us as spirits? We do know that our life in the physical body will eventually end, but the life of the spirit continues. And that is really reassuring. But sometimes we have more questions. We want to know what happens next. How is my bigger life as the spirit that I am, who is temporarily in this physical body? And today, we want to talk a little bit about this and offer a little bit of an illustration as well, and invite us to look at a story in a slightly different way that we may have been accustomed to see if we can take some wisdom from it and have some sticking points that may help us in our own individual journey through space and time, so to speak, right? I don't want to make it melodramatic, but we are in this beautiful journey through space and time. And so our journey as spirits is one of self awareness, is one of searching for our true identity, is one of really pondering about who we are, what should we do, and where we go next. And I think that is a beautiful thing in general because it allows us to really contemplate um, everything around us. Because once we change the perspective of who we are and what the world is, the way we face the world changes ever so slightly too. So I think a good place is to understand the spirit's perspective of evolution. I think that we have briefly talked about in many different places, and I'm sure by now you have been exposed to the idea that we evolve as spirits. That is, we do so by learning in our everyday lives, but we also have many lives, and we call that reincarnation. And the concept of reincarnation is key to Spiritism because it allows us to see that we are not just the product of one lifetime, but instead we are the consequence of many different actions that we have taken through eons of time as we have led multiple lives. It also allows us to understand our present circumstances and the world around us because if we have been living many lives from many different lifetimes, then it also makes sense that those consequences of the actions we have taken in the past carry over to us because we know that there is the law of cause and effect, which is a natural consequence of the physical world and also the spiritual world. That is to say, because of reincarnation, we begin to understand why things are the way they are for us today. Why is it that we maybe were born in a specific place, in a specific group, with a specific family, and with specific challenges? And why is it that your challenge is different maybe than my challenges? Because you have made a set of circumstances, you have met a set of circumstances and made a different set of choices in the past that have led you to where you are today. But this is an interesting conversation, and we can have more of it at a different time. But the point here is, as the result of our previous lives, we continue to evolve, we continue to grow, and we continue to learn more things. But when we talk about this, the journey of the spirit, one of the many questions is how did we start? How how did it all begin? I mean, we know and we believe in the presence of a God, an all loving and all knowing and all powerful God. And so we were created at some point in time. But there's always a little bit of a question in some people of how our creation took place. And to be honest with you, that is a topic that it is still a little bit unclear to us because we are not yet evolved enough to fully understand the mind of God and how everything that the God has put into motion works. However, we are making significant progress as we continue to study. So there are some clues, there are some hints that can help us understand a little bit of where we come from as a spirit, not only in this life, but in all our previous lives and before that, our moment of spiritual creation, and where we are going to. And so today we want to speak a little bit about that by bringing you some materials that you may want to peruse later at your own desire and own time to dive into your own study of that. But the first thing that I would like to bring up is a question from this book, the Spirits book, which is the seminal work of Spiritism, from where it all started. And the Spirits book, as you're well aware, is the result of Kardec's research into mediumship and the effects that were taking place around him in Paris in the 1850s. And he posed a series of questions to different spirits in different mediumistic meetings, in different seances, if you will. And then he triangulated those answers to see if they made sense. And if the answers that were given to similar questions in different places really aligned, then he would hold them as a great source of wisdom. And then eventually he would take them and organize in a fashion that is easy for us to understand. And we have the Spirits book. So in the Spirits book, there is a trove of wisdom in there, but there is one particular question that really I feel like is both poetry and science at the same time. And it may help us understand a little bit how the process of spiritual evolution takes place. You see, we are now at this time and age familiar with the idea of physical evolution, evolution of the species that Darwin and Russell brought forth in the 1850s as well, time of Kardec. But that time not so accepted. But now we know that animals and species evolve. But we also know that spiritually we evolve. But we have this question of when did we start? Was I always a human? Was I something before being a human? And this question, question 540 of the Spirits book, begins to address this in a very beautiful way. Let me share with you a little bit about that, some pieces of this question, so we can talk about this and begin to frame our conversation for today. All right, so here we go. So in question 540, and I took a couple of pieces here, right? The spirits say, everything in nature is linked together, from the primitive atom to the archangel, who also began as only an atom. An admirable law of harmony, which your limited minds cannot yet grasp in its entirety. So if you want to read that question, it's a beautiful question. It's a nice comment that our spirit friends leave us in a topic that is not necessarily related to evolution in this way, but we get little pearl wisdom here. And why is that? Because here, what the spirits are saying is that everything in nature is linked together, right? So the most simple atom to the most beautiful archangel, right? Who also began as an atom. So we have a very beautiful clue that the most elevated spirit that the Christian context of the 1850s could think about, an archangel, that is a supercharged angel, right, was once an atom. And that gives us pause for reflection. Because if that is the case, then we too, who are not yet archangels, who are still in this path and this trajectory for evolution, also began as a small little atom. And it also is important to say that the atom was the smallest particle of matter that we had in the 1850s. But nowadays, we know that there's quarks and there's other things that are even smaller than the atom. And maybe we began even before then, but that's the language that the spirits had in the 1850s to communicate to us that there is a constant evolution from the simplest being or unit of creation all the way to the most elevated spiritual being. That is something to behold, isn't it? To think that we have gone beyond the human form, that in fact we have began as something so small as an atom and have evolved through time in something incredibly touching in many different ways, because we also know then that everything around us will evolve, as we are told. The atoms in the chair that I'm sitting on, the atoms on the table that I'm propping my computer on, and the atoms inside this computer eventually, in due time, will also evolve, because everything in nature is evolving. And that's a fascinating concept, and one that sometimes is difficult for us to comprehend and even accept, because we have been so programmed to think of ourselves as human beings that were nothing else, and that animals were always animals, and so forth. But truth is that we have been evolved through the eons of time. How much time it has taken us to become an atom to a human being, we are not quite sure. We are not yet aware of that in where we are in the evolutionary process. We don't have the wisdom, we don't have the smarts, we don't have the story really to be able to do that yet. But we do this. That over here, we began as an atom, or the smallest unit of matter. And that our trajectory is one that goes from atom to the most enlightened archangel. Again, a symbol for the most enlightened spirit or spiritual being that we can think of. However, we know that this doesn't happen easily over time. And so, as we talked about this piece, it becomes hard for us to understand how this process takes place. And truth is, we're not super aware just yet of how it will all take place, really, in terms of when does that break happen. But we do know, as we read another wonderful resource for spiritists, the book Genesis, which was the last book of what we call the Spiritist codification, where Kardec dives into not only the miracles, but science in general. We see quite a bit about human evolution there. And in that book, as we move forward, we also find that not only do we begin an atom, but the spirit journey goes through the mineral kingdom. Eventually, we evolve to the vegetable kingdom, to the animal kingdom, until we reach the state of human beings. And then we are told we go even beyond that, the spiritual evolution. We go to archangel, and I let that arrow on the right side point towards infinity, because we don't even know what's past that. I mean, there might be other different perspectives. But the idea here is that as we evolve from the beginning of our spiritual lives as an atom, we begin to learn how to just be and organize ourselves in a format such as a mineral kingdom. We begin to develop a sensitivity to things in the vegetable world. We eventually develop the instinct, and we begin to really to make small choices guided by instinct in the animal kingdom. And in the human kingdom, we begin to truly use our free will. And that's a very important part. Now, one of the questions that we oftentimes get is, Daniel, how does that transition happen from, for instance, the animal kingdom to the human kingdom? And the truth is, we don't really know exactly when does that threshold is met and we shift kingdoms. At least I don't. And that's one of the beautiful things about Spiritism. We continue to research and learn new things, and we use science to also help us understand that transition. But we do know that this transition takes place, and this transition takes place over a very, very long period of time. And so As we begin to think about the science of the evolutionary scale of the spirit, we have some great clues in there in that question 540 of the Spirit's book. And we can also dive into the Genesis to understand that even though we begin as an atom, that atom begins to form and be able to aggregate other matter and then create this individuality. And then we begin to develop our sensitivity. We begin to develop our free will, our ability to make choices and exercise good judgment, and we grow in understanding and in the practice of kindness and charity and all the good virtues, and we go towards that angelic state, right? Which is really a figure of speech. And so that is the process that we're beginning to scratch in our search for understanding of the very beginning of the spirit to its very end. Again, it's like seeing through glasses, that are maybe a little bit dirty. We can't really see the full picture yet, but we're beginning to grasp that. Um, and another question that oftentimes comes to us is, well, but hold on a second, but why does that happen? And how does that happen? Why are we evolving? Why did we start? Why did we end? Again, we're not quite sure because we have not yet gotten to a level that we can truly understand God in its full power. But we do know that God is love. And so everything is created and set forth by love. And in that way, we know that we are created out of love, and to love we go. And so it's about learning, it's about perfecting ourselves and improving. But there are other clues that we can also have as to how that takes place. And for that, I want to invite you to look at another question in the Spirit's book, which is one of my favorites, if not my favorite question of the Spirit's book. It's question 132, and it really deals with the purpose of reincarnation. And simply put, why is it that we are here? We're incarnated. And I think this is a wonderful question. We're going to read some parts here because I think it's a little bit of a treasure that is hidden in the Spirit's book. Sometimes, if you read too quickly, you don't get the nuance of it. And in question 132, the Spirit's answer that God imposes incarnation for the purpose of leading spirits to perfection. And I think that we have gathered before, haven't we? We know that we are here to learn and to grow. But what I really like is the continuation of the answer that they give us, because I think that it gives us a lot of insight on how do we do that evolution piece. And the spirits go on and they say, after a little bit of things, and I got some pieces here, and I'm putting three pieces together of that question, that answer. And they say, incarnation has a further objective, which is to place spirits in situations where they can do their share in the work of the creation. So, in this way, they contribute to general work and progress at the same time. And here's what I think is really important about this question. You see, most of the time, we often think about our reason for being here, that it is for learning. And that is correct. That is not wrong at all. But in our awakening state of consciousness yet, we don't often consider that there is also a part of this learning process that is about contributing and doing our share of the creation. And so, in that sense, that question was really an eye opener to me, because I was just thinking about the world as a place in which I learn and I grow, and that is very true. But that reflected my own self-centered perspective, because I did not really come to think about the fact that not only am I here to learn, but I'm here to be a process of learning and help to others. And so, in that sense, really what we're talking about here, if I were to summarize our reason for being in the process through which we evolve in our journey as a spirit, I would say that in a simplistic way, it's about evolution and contribution. That we evolve, that we grow and learn by contributing to the world. And as we contribute to the world, we learn and grow. So I think that if we think about this, there can be no evolution without contribution. we cannot really learn and apply that which we have learned if we are not contributing to the world, because the process of learning is application of knowledge, which means doing things. And as we do things, as we work on ourselves, as we become smarter, as we work on our kindness and our ethics, we are also helping contribute to the share of the creation that is entitled to us. That is to say, we are helping the world and the universe better. And we cannot contribute without evolution, right? So there can also be no contribution without evolution, because every contribution, every effort that we do is a process of learning and growth. And so the journey of the spirit, in my perspective, is about evolution and contribution. And those two things come together. And the more I look into the world, the more I see that we have that repeated over and over. For instance, one interesting figure that I enjoy quite a lot is Francis of Assisi, whose life I find incredibly touching and incredibly inspiring. And in his prayer and his philosophy, he often says that it is in giving that we receive. And isn't that the same thing? In giving to the world, contributing to the world, is that we evolve. It is in that contribution that we find our evolution. And in many ways, in that receiving, we are also giving of ourselves. And so I love this beautiful perspective that is brought to us about this. So if I were to summarize for us today, what the spirit journey is, it's about evolution and contribution, because there can be no evolution without contribution, and every contribution is an evolution. And so I hope that sticks with us. But these are very abstract concepts. And these are very difficult concepts sometimes for us to bring into our everyday life. So I was thinking to myself, is there a way in which we maybe can use a story that sticks with us, that helps us understand what this process of contribution and evolution could look like? Because stories have really powerful uses for us. They stick with us more easily, and that's why this most enlightened spirit we have seen on the face of the earth, Jesus, has left us with many wonderful stories that we can then unpack later as we grow in knowledge to understand what they really mean. And so, if you are amenable to it, I want to share with you a story that I like very much that can also be used to this perspective. It is not often used in this perspective, but I think it could be, right? And it is really, I'm talking about the parable of the lost son, which is a story we find in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15, and it's just a couple of verses. It's verses 11 to 32, and I want to share that with you today, if that's okay. We are not going to do a full analysis of the parable, but I want to read it to you, and I want to give you kind of a quick insight, because this parable is so deep we can spend months unpacking it. But I do think that it may lead us to a specific understanding of what the evolution of the spirit is like for us, whether we're here on earth or in the spiritual plane. So if you indulge me, I'm going to try to go through it as painlessly as we can so we can get to the meat of it, right? So bear with me as we do this. All right. So I might put this on your screen as well so that you don't have to look at me all the time, because, why not? Why not read and also grow in understanding? I'm using the New Living Translation here of the New Testament. There are many different translations. This one is accessible. It's easy to read. I myself am oftentimes partial to the King James because of the language and the poetry. But I think this one is an easy one to read. So I hope that you would join me in this adventure. So here we go. So, oops, look at that. To illustrate the point further, because, Jesus is in the middle of talking to people about what the kingdom of God is like, he says, a man had two sons. The younger son told his father, I want my share of your estate now before you die. So his father agreed to divide his wealth between his sons. And a few days later, this younger son packed all of his belongings and moved to a distant land. And there he wasted all his money in wild living. About the time his money ran out, a great famine swept over the land and he began to starve. He persuaded a local farmer to hire him, and the man sent him to his fields to feed the pigs. The young man became so hungry that even the pods he was feeding the pigs looked good to him, but no one gave him anything. When he finally came to his senses, he said to himself, "At home, even the higher servants have food enough to spare, and here I am dying of hunger. I will go home to my father and say, 'Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you, and I am no longer worthy of being called your son. Please take me on as a hired servant.' So he returned home to his father. And while he was still a long way off, his father saw him coming. Filled with love and compassion, he ran to his son, embraced him, and kissed him. His son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against both heaven and you, and I am no longer worthy of being called your son.' But his father said to the servants, 'Quick, bring the finest robe in the house and put it on him. Get a ring for his finger and sandals for his feet, and kill the calf we have been fattening. We must celebrate with a feast, for this son of mine was dead and now has returned to life. He was lost, but now he's found.' So the party began. But the story doesn't end there just yet. There's a little bit more. Meanwhile, the older son was in the fields working. When he returned home, he heard music and dancing in the house, and he asked one of the servants what was going on. 'Your brother is back,' he was told, 'and your father has killed a fattened calf. We are celebrating because of his safe return.' The older brother was angry and wouldn't go in. His father came out and begged him, but he replied, 'All these years I've slaved for you and never once refused to do a single thing you told me to. And in all that time, you never gave me even one young goat for a feast with many friends. Yet, when the son of yours comes back after squandering your money on prostitutes, you celebrate by killing the fattened calf.' But his father said to him, 'Look, dear son, you have always stayed by me, and everything I have is yours. We had to celebrate this happy day, for your brother was dead and has come back to life. He was lost, but now he is found.'" All right, that's quite a bit to digest there. And you're probably wondering, Dan, why are you bringing a prodigal son into the journey of the Spirit? I think that you understand that this parable, if you have heard it before, which most of us have within the Christian tradition, is really about being lost and being found, right? Finding our way to life. But what if we could also use this example to substantiate the journey of the Spirit through multiple incarnations? Not in one incarnation only, but in multiple incarnations. And so, to that end, if you agree, let's do a quick review of the facts here. And again, we're not going to dive into a lot of the symbolism here. There's tons of it. I love it. I think it's so powerful in many different ways. But our time is short, and we want to focus on our journey of the Spirit as a whole. We can always talk about that parable some other time, right? All right. So let's do this really quick. Let's just kind of review what happens in this story from a high perspective, from a high level perspective, so that maybe we have a little bit more fodder with which to consider what happens to the Spirit as well. All right. In the journey of the Spirit, we find the lost son, sometimes referred to as the prodigal son, working at the farm. He is with his father and his brothers and other people working at this farm. And this is the place we start from. And as you might remember, he does something quite daring. He says to himself, I need more. I need to figure things out. He asks his father for his inheritance before his father is dead. And guess what? His father actually acquiesces, actually gives it. And so he takes all this money and all these resources that he has. And what does he do? He goes into a distant land. He goes far from the farm. He goes far from the place in which his father is. And I think you can see the symbolism here. The father being God, the creator, right? And all those wonderful things. And he goes far away from that state in the distant land. And then in this distant land, he seeks for fulfillment. And by fulfillment, I mean personal fulfillment. He lives it up. He spends all his money on pleasures, on eating well, on dating, on going out, on enjoying life to such an extent that he soon runs out of money. He must have spent that really quickly because his emphasis was only really on satisfying his senses and his pleasures. And here's what I think is really interesting. And when he gets to the distant land and he experiences that challenge, he feels that hunger, because now he no longer has those resources. He can no longer live it up, but something begins to tell him that he's in trouble, right? And so what does he do? Does he go back then? He does not. He decides he still wants to enjoy things the way he had it. So he tries to find a job and he asks for favors. And the truth is, he's not qualified to do any other job because he has not tried. He has not really developed his skills. And the only job that he can get is feeding the pigs. And if you remember the Jewish tradition of the time, and still today in many different ways, the pigs and are the dirtiest animals. They're not well seen, so he could not even take care of the cattle. He had to take care of the pigs, so he went to the lowest of the lowest jobs. And even in that job, as he was feeding the pigs, he's looking at the food that he's feeding the pigs, and he's saying, oh my God, this looks good, this is more than what I have. And so even in the lowest of the low places, he says, what am I doing here? And it finally dawns on him that maybe he shouldn't be here. Maybe he is wasting his time trying to find ways to go back and enjoy life as he was enjoying life in the distant land. Because when he was in the farm, he knew that even those who worked at the farm for his father, for God, even those who were doing that work, received more fulfillment, more pay, so to speak, than he is doing now. And he says, I'm going to make my way back. I regret that. And I want my father to take me back, as I realize that I've been so busy trying to satisfy my senses, and I've just run myself to the ground. This is not how I should be. And now that I understand things and he comes unto himself, he says, I'm going to go back, and I don't even want to, I don't even expect him to take me as the son. I just want to be a worker there, right? And while he's coming back, and perhaps one of the most beautiful parts of this parable for me, um, halfway through the work, as he's going to his return back to his divinity, to who he is, the father sees him and runs towards him, because God is always waiting for us to return to our full sense, our full self-awareness of immortality. And I say this because sometimes we forget that, the journey that the prodigal son had to walk from the farm to the distant land, right? He has to make it back. So this is not a quick return. It takes time. And I say that because I think it makes a lot of sense for us to equate that with reincarnation. The choices that we make over many lifetimes are not going to dispelled or be cleared up in one life. It will take us all the same path that we did to get where we are, to walk it back. So the habits that we have developed over time need to be brought back. They need to be dehabituated in many different ways. But halfway to the process, God lends a hand. God comes in, or the farmer comes in, and also gives us something really beautiful. It gives the prodigal son, I think you might have seen, a ring, which is a sign of a covenant, like saying, hey, we and I are connected forever. It also gives him shoes and sandals, which means that he's not a serf, because serfs didn't have shoes. So he's saying, hey, I am accepting you as my child. I am not going to have you as a simple laborer, because you're more than that. So all of us are way more than that. That's the symbolism in there, I think, as well. Come to our house. We are going to kill the fattened pig, which we've been saving for a special occasion. We're going to throw a party because you have come to your senses. There's a moment for celebration, right? So it's a really beautiful journey. And if we think about this, right, this journey could be one of great awareness. And we can get that there too. But there's another part of the journey that I think is really beautiful. Time for us to talk at another time, which is the brother. He has a brother that has stayed behind, right? And in that process of staying behind, he is now hurt. He's now hurt that his younger brother has come back. And that's really interesting for me, because it shows that even though he stayed at the farm, he was still competing with his brother that left the farm. And he still thought that he was above him and that he deserved more. And so he was working at the farm, but his heart has not yet developed as that journey. He has not yet gone on the outwardly journey, but his inward journey has also not led him yet to the place where he can be happy for the fact that his brother has returned. So in many different ways, this story, I think, of the prodigal son is really the story of two prodigal sons. One of them that goes out into the world, messes up, and comes back after realizing that he has not done great. But there's also one that stays behind and doesn't venture out, but has not yet gone through the heart transformation, to the soul transformation that is required for us to truly be happy working in the farm. Right? So as we see this journey, as I was saying, not only of enlightenment and things, we have two examples of how we can evolve. One going outside of the farm, losing ourselves in the world and forgetting about our spiritual essence until we face enough hardship to understand that the physical world will never satisfy us to our fullest. And then we gradually make our way back into our spiritual essence. We become aware of our spiritual essence over many reincarnations and begin to work on what really matters. And we start to focus a little bit less on the rewards of the physical world and begin to really work on the rewards of the spiritual world. We begin to find ways to equip ourselves to be great workers so that we can work in the farm and wherever it is that we are. And if we have stayed behind, even though we have not ventured out too far and made tons of mistakes out there, right, as the other brother who had stayed behind, we still need to work on that inner transformation in the heart of us that we require us to be happy when other people succeed. Because if we are not happy with other people's success, we're still thinking that our success depends on other people not being successful or us being more successful than other people, which means that we have not yet understood our siblings around us as also siblings of God. We have not yet embarked in this win-win journey that is spiritual evolution. Because remember, we talked about this. Evolution is contribution. Contribution is part of evolution. And so if we are still competing with other people, we're still under this spiritual mindset that for us to succeed, somebody else has to lose. And that negates the ability for us to understand that we're all children of God, that we're all on the same level. And so, spiritually speaking, we have not yet fully ascended to the level that we want to be. But why do I say that? I say that in many ways because we can debate a lot about, what the farm means, what the discipline needs, the hunger, the pigs, and so forth. And it's a wonderful parable, and I suggest that you read it and spend a couple of days just thinking about it. How could that be a symbolism to your life in general, right? But I think that the question here is simple as this. I hope that this story may help us understand that our journey is far greater than just a journey of one lifetime. And that even during multiple lifetimes, we're still doing echoes of that same process of finding ourselves. Not only are we finding ourselves in this lifetime, but we're also finding ourselves through multiple lifetimes. That is to say, we are finding out or trying to who we are as spiritual beings. The good news is that we have overcome a major hurdle. We have gone through different kingdoms. We're no longer mineral or vegetable or animal. We have developed this awareness to understand and think about ourselves in critical ways that we had not had before. And now we're beginning to go towards this archangel phase. We're not there yet, but we have developed a keen awareness of ourselves spiritually. We now know that we are more than what meets the eye. So this physical body that you see here today, which could be a little nicer, right? That you see here today is not who I am. It's not who you are. When you look in the mirror, that's not who you are. That is the form you take for this life. But you are far more than that. You are the product of many lifetimes. In your spirit journey, you have overcome so much. You have done so much. You have been in the path of evolution for the eons of time. We don't know how much just yet, but we do know that you have successfully navigated the smallest matter, right? The atom, into the mineral kingdom, the vegetable kingdom, and the animal kingdom. And now, as a human being capable of making decisions, you have the ability to reason and search for things that will finally quench that hunger that we all feel for happiness inside. Because we know that we are destined to happiness. We know, right? We know in the line of happiness that we have began as an atom, and that eventually we're going to reach the archangel level, and we're going to be happy and fulfilled, right? Even as we continue to work, because remember, evolution is always contribution. And so we know that our evolution as a spirit mandates that we continue to grow in understanding and in the practice of everything that we learn. And so, as we take that in, I hope it brings us a little bit of solace, a little bit of hope in our hearts to understand that while our life can be difficult and it can be quite complicated, we will get there. Much the same way the prodigal son returned from his journey through many lifetimes of understanding, and much the same way the older brother who has begun still that journey of self, even though he did not go on the farm, will also complete that journey and be happy for his brother and for himself when he gets there. So that is a great certainty, because we're also even told, not only through the teachings of the Christ, which is an incredible spirit that has told us about immortality by coming back from the being nailed to the cross, right? We oftentimes see Jesus' story as one of suffering and pain. I see one of joy and happiness. He even told us that he brings us glad tidings. He brings good news. And the good news is that there is no death. And when we begin to dive deeper into that perspective, we are reminded that we are going to be okay. And I say that because in this parable, at the end of this parable, Jesus tells us that the father says to the son, son or daughter. Again, remember, we said son because the society at the time was even more chauvinistic than it is today. But you can read as son or daughter. Gender is not important because we're immortal spirits here in this case. You are always with me, and everything I have is yours. You are always with me, and everything I have is yours. That is to say, we are always our spiritual selves, and God is always waiting for us, half that way down the road, for us to come into that self awareness of who we are spiritually speaking. Because once we do, we begin to develop these skills and this perspective that we can truly begin to contribute into the world. And that contribution will not only make us more fulfilled and overcome our challenges from the past and help us develop new skills, but will also elevate ourselves and our spirits in such a way that we will find the happiness that it is to be a contributing part of the creation. And that is quite something, isn't it? It's something really, really special. So, what I have to remind us of today is very simple, that the process of this evolution of the spirit is nothing more and nothing else than the process of contributing to the world. So, if anything else, remember this: to evolve, we must contribute. Evolution is contribution, and contribution is evolution. And that empowers us to think about something that is very simple yet very practical for our day-to-day world. Is what is it that we're going to do from now on? Now that we know that evolution requires contribution, and that we have a contribution to do not only for our own evolution but that of the world and the universe in general, what is it that we are going to choose to do today? Small acts. We don't need to do great things. We are not going to return home to the farm all at once. It takes time. The same road that we made, that we took to walk out into the distant land and find our pleasures, thinking that would give us the satisfaction we wanted, only to find out it didn't. That same road is the road that we are going to take back. We need to kind of undo all the habits and all the thinking and all the mindsets and all the paradigms that we have formed over many lifetimes. That explains why our world is struggling with kindness and cooperation and collaboration. we are still stuck in the sense that we need to win over other people to be happy. It will take time, but we can start that journey very simply by doing one small thing every single day, by doing one small action that you can control that will make your life better and the life of others better. Because the truth is, if I ask you to think about the moments in which you are happiest in your life, chances are most of them, if not all of them, will involve you being with other people or doing things with people that you cared about. Yes, it is wonderful to have a beautiful home and a beautiful car, but cars and homes go away. And they really don't inspire us as much if we cannot enjoy that with other people. So today, as we think about the spirit journey, I hope that you are motivated and inspired to continue studying in your spiritual quest to comprehend who you are, not only as a physical being, but as a spiritual being, because we don't spend nearly enough time considering our spiritual nature in our everyday. If we are lucky, most of us spend maybe 5 minutes a day praying or thinking about ourselves as spiritual beings. Most of us don't even do that much. I can tell you that. I always joke and say that sometimes I spend more time brushing my teeth than considering myself as an immortal being. So, if we can further the practice of spiritual thinking, if we can put our spiritual goggles on, our glasses that allow us to see life through through the lens of reincarnation, we may be able to feel that in our veins, in our hearts, that we are more than meets the eyes, and that there's hope to be had and there's progress to be made, not only on our own journey, but that of the world around us. So do something kind today. Help somebody out. Say a nice word to somebody, even to yourself. See if you can commit 30 minutes of your week to helping a cause that inspires you. Go read something that uplifts your soul. Do something that helps you evolve and helps you contribute to the world. And I hope that from there on, you will begin to find even more joy in your heart as you continue to study, to evolve, and to contribute to the world. So, the spirit journey, in my perspective, there, I would love for you to continue your journey. I give you some resources that hopefully it will be helpful. You can read more deeply those two questions of the Spirits book, questions 540 and especially question 132. Of course, the whole Spirit book is the best Spiritist resource there ever was. You can also dive deeper if you're really interested in the scientific piece of the evolution of the soul by reading Genesis, which is the fifth book in the Spiritist codification. Very interesting. And if you're interested, you should take a look at that. Of course, you can always also go into the New Testament if you like more of the story and the allegorical components of that evolutionary path that I feel like the parable of the lost son brings you. And you can find that in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15. There are many more other resources out there. And hopefully you can use other people too and have great conversations with them. But with that, I'm going to pause here and to see if maybe we have comments or other interactions that folks might want to make. Otherwise, I am just very grateful for the time today to be here with friends from the Spiritist Psychological Society in London, which I hope to visit again in person soon, because it's just wonderful to make so many friends along the way. I say that because one of the most beautiful things that Spiritism does is not only gives us this opportunity to evolve mentally by learning different things, but also have a wonderful community of people that contribute to our lives. So I'm thankful to make friends everywhere, and I'm really thankful for the group for having me here today.
Thank you very much for your reflections and guiding us in our journey, that we can also learn to think for ourselves and go deeper into the wisdom that we all bring within. Thank you very much indeed, Danielle. There are no questions so far, and as we're coming to the end of our time today, then we would kindly ask you if it's possible for you to do the closing prayer for us. Would that be possible, Danielle?
I would be honored. Thank you. So if you're so willing, I would invite you to find a comfortable position. I myself often like to close my eyes, but that's up to you. But in this moment, let us raise our thoughts together to the Creator of all things, that for reasons that we still do not completely understand, have not only created each one of us, but have set us in a path of evolution. He have began this process where we grow little by little every single day, even when we are not aware that we are growing. Thank you, God, for the opportunities that are presented in our lives, because now we begin to comprehend that even the challenges that we face are meant to teach us important lessons that we may carry on with ourselves. And even more inspiringly, God, thank you for reminding us that not only are we here to learn, but that our actions matter, and they matter so much that you have entrusted us to help this world and the universe be a better place for all creatures, big and small. Thank you for loving us in such a way as to allow us to have as many opportunities, as many lifetimes as we need to make the progress that we want to find the happiness we so desperately desire. Thank you for the support you give us along the way, because we know that you would never give us a task beyond our means without giving us the proper support. Thank you for bringing in contact with each other, and today specifically, thank you for giving us the tools with which we can further our spiritual education through mediumship, through kindness, through works of charity, so that we may develop the habit of mind to think of ourselves as a spiritual being first and a physical being second. We are so grateful for the ties of friendship and love that we're beginning to learn, that bring us together even when we are across continents, even when we are scattered across the globe. Thank you for helping us feel connected to each other and begin to realize that we truly are heirs of your great universe. And last but not least, we also thank all our spiritual mentors and benefactors who work so tirelessly to guide us and inspire us in our journey. May they also be inspired in their journey. Thank you, God. And we hope that more and more we have the opportunities to learn and grow in our spiritual evolution. Thank you. So be it.
Thank you very much, Danielle, for the prayer and also for being with us today. We are very grateful, hoping that in the future we have other opportunities, and surely we will have. And as you mentioned, shortly perhaps we will be together in personal. That will be a pleasure for us. Whenever you are coming over London, let us know, and we are with the society open to receive you. And all of those who have been here with us, Marcia Suarez, who is giving congratulations for you, Danielle, here. Thank you for being with us. And at the same time, inviting those who are with us to join us later on today at 8 p.m. with our Portuguese meeting for those who want to be with us. And for you, Danielle, and your family, much peace to all of you, and hope to see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.